Sandy Golding, President of Beaches Watch.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Ed. Ed's got a big voice, so we use him to get out so everybody can hear. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Sandy Golding, and I'm President of Beaches Watch. For those of you that are not familiar with Beaches Watch, we are a nonprofit citizens group here at the beach. We have been in existence since 2004, and our focus is on educating and engaging citizens in the issues that come before our elected officials so they can make decisions with citizen input involved. And tonight we're very pleased to have our guest speaker. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. Before I introduce him, I want to recognize the elected officials we have here tonight, and we have a lot. Starting out with Atlantic Beach, we have Mayor Mike Borno. We have Vice Mayor or Mayor Pro Tem. Which one is it, Maria? What? Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, Maria Barr. And then from Jacksonville Beach, we almost have a full house. We're only missing two, I think. We have Mayor Charlie Latham. And we have Councilor Keith Doherty. And Councilwoman Chris Hoffman. And Councilman Phil Vogelsang. And then Neptune Beach showed up really well tonight as well. We've got Mayor Harriet Pruitt. And Councilman John Jolly. And Councilwoman Kara Tucker. And Councilman Scott Wiley. And I have to apologize, you're Mayor Pro Tem, aren't you?
Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor, okay, John Jolly, I'm sorry, I apologize for not recognizing that.
Janelle.
What up, Janelle, too?
Janelle.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Janelle Wilson just walked in.
Hey, Janelle.
Sorry, Janelle. Okay, I hope everybody got an agenda when you came in. We've got some information here on the agenda. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We have Jackie Smith, who's with Congressman Crenshaw's office. That's Thank you, Maria. All right, so just want to let everybody know we've got some things coming up. Jacksonville Beach, you know, there's a group that started organizing events to try to have some more family-friendly events in the downtown area, so Better Jacksonville Beach. Next Tuesday we'll have the art walk. So they're having an art walk every second Tuesday of the month. The first Tuesday, which was last night, they had Taste of Jack's Beach. So every first Tuesday they're going to have Taste of Jack's Beach. You can go down there, you can go to the different restaurants and get a taste of what they serve, and it's a nice way to get out and enjoy downtown Jack's Beach and have a good night. And they're going to have some more things coming, but for right now, the first Tuesday and the second Tuesday, they have the Taste of Jack's Beach and the Art Walk plan. So we hope you guys will put that on your calendar and plan to go out and enjoy downtown Jacksonville Beach. We also want to congratulate the candidates that won the Atlantic Beach election. I'm sure everybody knows already by now, but Mayor Carolyn Woods won the mayor election. James Hill won the Commissioner seat 4, and Jonathan Doherty won Commissioner seat 5. They'll be sworn in, I guess, in November. Okay. St. John's River Ferry Ambassador Training. I've got it on the agenda here, but hope you guys will consider getting involved and helping with the ferry. It's actually a lot of fun from what I understand. You go and spend some time on the ferry, you talk to people about the ferry and all the great things that they can see if they traverse from one side to the other. And so they do have training on Saturday, September 7th, which is this Saturday. And then they also have next Saturday from 9 to noon at the Mayport Community Center. So we would encourage you guys to get involved, and there is information here on who to contact if you'd like to do the training. And just want to remind everybody that that we are a membership organization. If you would like to join Beaches Watch, you can stop at the table over here. We've got brochures with a membership form on them, and membership's $10 for an individual, $15 for a family, and it just helps support what we're doing in the community. So we encourage you and would invite you to join the organization. And then also we want to let everybody know that in October our meeting is going to be Wednesday, October 2nd at 7 o'clock here in the library. And we're going to have Guy Anderson, who is with Save Jack's Libraries. He's going to be talking to us about the independent taxing district that they are doing a petition drive to try to help save our Jacksonville libraries. So should be a really interesting meeting. Does anybody have any announcements really quick before we move to our guest speaker?
Go.
You have an announcement?
Yeah, well, I was sharing an announcement. It came from Elaine. We have a situation where we're struggling to get funding for the St. John's River bid, and Elaine is asking for everyone that can be available to come to the meeting tomorrow at City Council at 2 o'clock. So if anybody can come down, we need your support.
So it's going to be Jacksonville City Council Chambers at 2 o'clock?
Tomorrow, City Council Chambers
2 o'clock.
at 2 o'clock.
Okay. So I guess we need a show of people in support of the St. John's River Ferry. Also, okay. Also, we, if you want to send emails to the council people, I'll be sending out an email tonight so that you can also let the Jacksonville City Council people know how you feel about the ferry and the funding for the ferry. And I'm sure our speaker will talk to us about this a little bit, so let me just go ahead and introduce our speaker for tonight.
He's representing Janet Atkins.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We have another person we'd like to recognize tonight, and it's Jim Adams, who is representing Janet Atkins. Okay, so tonight we have Bill Gulliford, who is our Beaches District Representative for the City of Jacksonville, but he's now also City Council President. And we want to thank you for coming tonight. And
It wasn't a very long trip.
I'm going to get my friend Ed. I need something to lean on, so if you don't mind. It's been a long day, so this is much better. I'm not trying to be prominent, except I just need this. Before I get started, I'd like to recognize a couple people that weren't recognized. Jimmy Hill, where are you? Did he duck back out?
He stepped out.
Newly elected commissioner in Atlantic Beach to be sworn in, as Sandy said, in November. We also have George Forbes with us, our city manager from Jacksonville Beach. George comes in and visits me every now and then, and I think, what's George want? And you don't refuse George, you know. He always has his facts, and he has everything just organized to the T, and it's really, really good. We have another beach resident. Jimmy, I recognized you a minute ago. Let everybody see who you are. That's newly elected City of Atlantic Beach Councilor. We also have another beach resident that's here, and she is, you don't see much of her because she works like a dog. She is the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Jacksonville for Mayor Brown, and I think the world of her. She is a shining star on the administration staff, and that's Karen Bowling. Karen, let everybody see you. I'm just going to bounce around a little bit tonight. I'm going going to hit on the 800-pound gorilla first, if that's okay, and try and give you a little bit of a quick education on the predicament that we're in with our police and fire pension fund, which is driving so much pain throughout the city right now. And there have been attempts to get resolution, and I'm sure all of you are well aware of what's taken place thus far, and it's been all over the paper and the media. But just to give you a little quick update on the predicament that we're in, because the observation we get from many people in the community is, well, just go fix it. You know, just take care of it. And the problem we've got is something called a 30-year agreement. 30-year agreement was initiated 13 years ago, and basically what the agreement did was it took the rights that are given to an elected body, namely the council, away from the council and gave it to the police and fire pension board to negotiate benefits and control benefits. And unlike every other elected body throughout the state, the beach communities, other counties, etc., under Chapter 447 of the Florida statutes, they have the right to collectively bargain with the unions and to set benefit levels, etc. Well, we inherited this 30-year agreement that said we can't do that. We can't function like everybody else does. So we don't have the level of control. And so lately there's been quite a lot of consternation and discussion about the 30-year agreement, and in fact there is a lawsuit pending. A lawsuit was filed by several members of the union, including the president of the firefighters union, Randy Weiss, and it was filed in federal court. And it was primarily filed to resolve this issue about can we break it or not. There are provisions in Florida statutes that lead one to believe that we could break the agreement, except that there's been amendments and modifications to it since its initiation 13 years ago. So their contention is, well, you've already acquiesced to the fact that it's binding because you've made amendments and you've accepted those amendments. And then the terminology of the agreement itself. My feeling is, and several other people, is it's not binding, that we should be able to break that thing. But anyway, they filed this suit in federal court, which again is a jurisdictional issue. They filed a suit in federal court, and then from that, there were mediations, that out of the mediations arose the proposed agreement, which the council felt compelled not to ratify. And we could get into all kinds of reasons about that. It was our opinion versus the administration's opinion. We both want to get to the same place, but we just felt like it didn't go far enough, those of us that did not vote for it. In the meantime, the suit goes on. I think there was a hearing this week that said that the trial date is set for 2015. So that's a problem, and then the other problem is that really where the jurisdiction is for a case like this? I think it's probably in state court. Is there an opportunity for us, the City of Jacksonville, to go take some kind of action in state court? There are other things that are going on relative to it, but I would submit to you, and Civic Council is involved in looking at this thing and coming back with suggestions. There's a task force that the mayor started, headed by Bill Shy. They're looking at it. Everybody that looks at it finally hits the wall and realizes that the linchpin of the whole thing is this 30-year agreement. That's what really hogties us and inhibits us from being able to go ahead and do what any other elected body can do. So we're going to continue to work on that. There's fallout from it. Fitch has downgraded our credit because of that. We've got a $1.7 billion estimated unfunded liability as a result of what's happened with this police and fire pension fund. And you may not be aware, but GASB rules, which govern how cities and counties do financial reporting, has mandated that in the future we have to show that unfunded liability as a balance sheet line item, a liability, true liability, rather than footnoting it as has been done in the past. So now it's much more prominent, and of course when they look at us and do it comparatively with other counties around the state of Florida or cities around the state of Florida, they see our numbers are really out of whack. They're very, very big by comparison to other plans. So that's certainly a big issue. I think the final ultimate solution is that, first of all, we got to get past the 30-year agreement, and then everybody's going to have to share the pain. And that includes the unions, that includes taxpayers, that includes the city. That it's so out of whack right now that I don't see where there's any great alternative. And of course, that's driving the other thing that you hear about, and that is the budget. There was a great uprising in Bruja about the potential for shutting down the beach's library. I can assure you that was not, that was a big thing out here, but it wasn't the absolute biggest thing in the budget that was going to be cut. For instance, I'll give you an example. What worries me about the budget was the things that you all didn't see that were being reduced or eliminated or cut, and the profound impact that has somewhere down the road. You know, politicians like to do things that you all can see. Let's build a new building, let's get our name on it, let's do this and that and whatever. The real consequences, though, are the things that you don't see. Example, in the budget that was submitted to us, there was $0 for resurfacing. And 5 years ago, there was $12 million in that resurfacing budget. Now, what happens if we don't resurface streets or roads? You know, it's not just a matter of having potholes. It's if you leave it long enough that it deteriorates to the extent that now when you fix it, the cost goes up. Just like the Wix oil filter man on the commercial used to say, you want to pay me now or pay me later, but when you pay later, you always pay more. So there are a multitude of things that have been addressed by the Finance Committee that have been reinstated. The consequence of reinstating them, we set the millage rate 1.5 mils higher. That was simply a ceiling. That wasn't setting it really. That was saying because of the trim requirements, we will establish the millage rate ceiling at 1.5%, which meant that, or 1.5 mils, which meant that we couldn't go higher than that without sending out new notices, which is a couple $100,000 to do. So it's a prudent thing. It's really convoluted the way the state mandates that. They should be letting us address the budget for a time before we send out trim notices, but they put the cart before the horse. So we have to send out these trim notices. Right now, with everything that we've adjusted in the budget, we're ranging somewhere around 1.1 mils, maybe just a little bit under that. Where will it all end up? I don't know. I think we're probably close. What does that equate to each of us? Well, you got your trim bills, and you can take a little bit off that increase. I am not a tax advocate because I pay it too. Mine went up. My projection went up about $500. I'd rather spend $500 on something else. But I also recognize that as a city, we're compelled to provide certain services. And I can also assure you that even with that increase, we're still cutting. I mean, a lot of those budgets that we've looked at from various departments and operations are still below what they were last year. So it's not like some department's getting great treatment. I mean, libraries, for example, their budget, even though we restored a fair amount of money to it, their budget is still a couple $1 million lower than what it was last year. So we're not being overly gracious with the funding that we're giving throughout this process. And I've made it a point to sit through as many budget meetings as I could. The city council president has the ability to also vote in any committee. So actually, I voted in a couple instances where there were 6 members there, and I ended up being the swing guy and broke a tie. Sometimes I think back about what I did and wonder, because whenever you see a body like that deadlocked, you're not always sure that what your position is correct. But anyway, we have gotten pretty much through the budget, and now we're to the point of amendments, where council members will come back and offer amendments to the budget to maybe add something. You could offer an amendment to cut something, but that generally doesn't happen. So we're going through the amendment process. There can be that tomorrow afternoon, which is being referenced, the meeting, it's the Finance Committee is accepting amendments from council members, as well as addressing a few unfinished issues like the ferry. And then I suspect Tuesday night there are going to be more amendments offered, and then the whiz-bang meeting of all whiz-bang meetings will be the following, the last meeting in September, where we'll probably be there till, what do you think, Elaine, 2, 3 in the morning? Something like that. At least one, yeah. So that's going to be a challenge, but at the end, I guess we'll solve as much of the problem that we have facing us as we can in short-term basis, but long-term, we got to solve the pension problem. It's just going to eat us alive if we don't. We have a task force that Lori Boyer is chairing. It's on consolidated government. We're blessed to have Georgette Dumont in the back. Wave at everybody. She is a member of that task force. professor at the University of North Florida. For those of you who don't know, in public administration, she's a great asset. She's also a great asset because she's a beachy. And we have 4 other members on the task force, including Elaine Brown, and Tom Taylor, Brett Treadwell, and what's Opio's last name? Young attorney.
SoCo.
That's it. Thank you very much. But I think out of 31 members on the task force, we have reasonable representation on the task force. And what's interesting to me about this process, and what I hope comes out of it, is I think there's systemic problems with consolidated government. Somebody said, oh, you're just doing this because you're anti-consolidation, you want to deconsolidate. I said, no, I want to have a good, honest, open debate about it, and maybe I want to reconsolidate. Maybe there are things that we can fix that will be better. I'm not a strong supporter of this central service process because I think we're paying an incredible amount of additional money through what was originally a great idea and seems to make a lot of sense, but in reality, when you hear some of the horror stories, it just doesn't seem to work properly in many instances. So that's something that I hope that they will look at. I think there are issues in procurement. I think there are issues throughout the government. There are a number of questions that need to be answered. You've heard the old debate about should we have an appointed sheriff or an elected sheriff. I'm sure that they'll get into that. That debate started back at the beginnings of consolidation. I can see both sides of that argument. I can see in the budget process, it's very difficult for the mayor. You see how the administration handles the fire department budget and the fire chief, but the sheriff is much more independent, and it makes the process maybe a little more difficult. And I'm preaching to the choir here with Elaine and Dick and several others, but it's intriguing to watch that how the political part of it sometimes evolves. And so those are all things that they're going to take a hard look at, and I might add, they're going to look at the relationship of the beaches with Jacksonville, which I think is a proper and appropriate place for that to be reviewed and discussed. And maybe we have never been able to resolve the differences ever since consolidation between Jacksonville and the beaches and Baldwin completely, and that's resulted in 2 lawsuits, rewritten agreements. But I would submit to you that those interlocal agreements still have a long way to go, still have some flaws. I know George Forbes would agree with me that, you know, they have a heck of a burden because of the asset that we have out here, especially in the summertime. And I'm sure if you polled all the people that are using the beach in Jacksonville Beach and all the facilities on a warm summer weekend afternoon, you'd find that a great majority of them are coming from the other side of the ditch. Well, should the City of Jacksonville participate more heavily in the support of that regional or county asset? And I'd submit to you, yes, probably they should. But these are the kind of things we need to sit down and have a fair review and discussion and debate about. And I hope that the task force will look at things like that. Tipping fees, I think, thanks again to Karen, we're moving in a direction where I think we're going to get some resolution to the tipping fees with Atlantic Beach and Neptune Beach. I can't announce anything yet, but there's an idea that's been advanced that we're working on right now, and I hope that it'll bring a resolution to the benefit of all parties, and I think it has the potential to do that. And I think that's the kind of relationship we certainly have to have, or need to have with Jacksonville as our functioning as our county out here. The other thing, going back just briefly to the budgeting process, I think all of you are probably aware that unlike just about every other county or major metropolitan area in the state of Florida, our property values actually are projected to be in decline in the upcoming year, and that adds significant burden to the process also. So it isn't just police and fire pension fund. We've got a bad trend. And of course, we are the economic driver, folks, for the surrounding counties. When you look at the success of St. John's, and surely one of the things you hear is their school system attracting people to move to St. John's County. But I'd submit this idea to you too. A lot of the areas on the northern part of St. John's County are unincorporated areas. Consequently, the millage rates that they're paying are county millage there's no city assessment. So they have a decided advantage when you compare their millage rate to the millage rate that we charge in the consolidated city of Jacksonville, because our millage rate is county, city combined throughout the entire county. So there is additional attraction for these people above and beyond just the school system. And I would submit to you, if you compare the school system in the southern part of Duval County to the school system in the northern part of St. Johns County, I think we're pretty doggone good. I think the statistics and records would show that. But we get painted as an entire school system, which takes in some areas that are not quite up to par, and so therefore we get broad brush painted in that scenario, and that's a negative consequence to us. But remember, we're seeing some economic expansion in Jacksonville, but what that's really benefiting is, again, St. Johns County and Clay County and maybe Baker and Nassau to some extent. And if you don't believe that, get down on US 1 or 95 coming north at rush hour. Because my little office or my little business is right there on US 1 at Bayard. And I can tell you, you have a real difficult time getting across US 1 at rush hour if you're having to cross the oncoming northern lanes of traffic to get to a business. The library, yes, we did save it, as I said a little bit earlier. It's still a big problem because we have seen, if you look at the trends, we have seen the library cut and cut and cut and cut. And some could argue that even restoring or keeping all of the libraries open, save two, the service level is still down substantially, which it is. And I think Barbara Gubbin is a very smart woman, and she got me, she kind of trapped me. She got me engaged and involved in going out and reading to kids. I read to kids here and reading to kids at Southeast Regional Library, and I was amazed at the kind of turnout that they would get. And just the contact I had the traditional view of libraries. Libraries are a place you go and you check out a book. Well, they have become much more than that. They have actually become almost like community centers. And so I think that they have a significant role to play, and it's an important role to play. We've got to come up with ways where we protect the funding. If the taxing district is a way to do it, and I think probably that is because so many other counties around the state, metropolitan counties, have gone in that direction, then that's a way to solidify their annual revenues and probably not see the draconian cuts that come along each year. And that's pretty tough. I mean, I see both sides of it, so I understand that. It's real hard sometimes to sit up there and try to make the kind of decisions. Cindy Funkhauser, where are you, Cindy? Cindy Funkhauser runs the Sulzbacher Center. And she has a heck of a job on her hands. She does an incredible job. It does provide a great service to our community, believe it or not. There's some issues, there's some homeless issues that really are significant and drive problems in the community that need to continually be addressed. Cindy can get up here and give you a heck of a talk about all of that. And yet, Cindy, you can tell them that you're on the chopping block every single year with any kind of funding from the city of Jacksonville. And so then while they raise a good bit of private funding, they're reliant, as are many others, on the city. I said in finance a couple of days ago when we were debating issues about funding children's programs and things like that, if it was a perfect world and parents were all responsible, we wouldn't have to fund anything. But the reality is, it's been thrown in our laps and in the school board's lap. And I don't know what you do other than keep trying to do what we're doing right now. Because the option for us is that if we don't try and get some interdiction with these younger kids, and especially the latchkey kids that are so vulnerable to influences in their neighborhoods that are not the right kind of influences, then we give those kids up, and the next time you run into those kids in our society is that they get arrested and they're incarcerated. It's not an easy thing to address because you're talking about a lot of money. But anyway, lastly, ferry, and then we'll open it up for questions. Ferry, we're $447,000 short projected next year. That's what we need to come up with. Ultimately, my feeling, I don't want to expose too much because I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but ultimately, I think the JTA needs to operate or to fund the ferry. That's really where it belongs. I never quite understood why the Port Authority ended up with it. I've had some preliminary discussions with them. I think that the little push, they probably are amenable to that. I've got some other ideas that we've been talking about how we can approach that. I think Mr. Crescent-Benny is going to push that idea because he thinks that they've got some extra money that they may or may not have. So tomorrow, I think he's going to bring that up. I'm going to North Carolina because my oldest son's getting married, and so I'm not going to be there, unfortunately, tomorrow for that. But even if we run into any kind of problem there, we'll keep coming. We'll get it done through an amendment if need be. I think we can muster the votes. For some reason, my friend Stephen Jones is dead set against the ferry. He will vote. For those of you that attend tomorrow, he will vote against ferry funding. And he votes. He was the one that ambushed me on tipping fees. He was the ringleader because he was council president when I was that first night at 1:20 in the morning when they threw the tipping fees out on an amendment. Some reason, and his brother lives in Atlantic Beach. Go figure. Maybe it's because he doesn't live at the beach and he feels resentment. I don't know, but something is there. And anyway, he'll vote against the ferry tomorrow. So. Y'all hiss and boo. No, you can't do that. But you might even want to send an email to Stephen and say, why don't you change your mind? I like him a lot. He's a good guy. But for some reason, he just has a burr under it.
What's the guy's name again?
Joost. Stephen Jost. His brother Hobart lives in Atlantic Beach. He can't get to him either. So, anyway, that's as much as I can think to tell you. If someone has questions, yes, sir.
You just mentioned something about the libraries and the schools. Are we I'm sort of under the impression that I got my tax statement the other day and it said I have a certain amount of millage to pay for county schools. And is that like the only thing that's designated that comes out of my money? I send Jacksonville a bucket of money. Do I send them a big bucket with a little small bucket for the schools, or do I just give them a big bucket to do what they want?
The school board sets millage rate also, and then you have some lesser entities like St. John's River Water Management District sets a millage rate and things like that. The two primary ones, the largest ones though, are by the city council for general government and the school board. School board millage rate actually has gone down just a little bit in the projected budget.
So if the school board's having a shortfall, is that due to lack of property? Their funding, is it due to our economy's down, the property values are down, and we're not giving the school board enough money, or the cost of...
No, because this year, as I indicated, what I found out was that their millage rate is actually a little bit lower than it was last year. So if your values go down, you would expect the millage rate, which would be the roll-up. It was always called a roll-back rate, where that was what with your property values going up, then you would have a number a millage rate, and you could roll back to that number and still generate the same amount of revenue that you generated the year before. Well, with the reverse of that, and the property values going down, it's sort of become a roll-up rate. That's what you have to raise the millage rate to generate the same amount of property tax revenue in the upcoming year. And in their case, they would have a roll-up rate, but actually they're a little bit lower than, and I'm not talking about, it's a very small amount, but they're actually a little bit lower than what their millage rate was last year.
Okay, one other question is concerning the ferry and the transportation authority. The ferry gets kicked around a lot, and you said you thought the Jacksonville Transportation Authority should take it over. Now, and then we also have that Skyway downtown, right? The Transportation Authority does that. Well, is the ridership on the ferry, operating at 40%, 50% versus the ridership on the Skyway or whatever that thing's called? Is it so out of whack that we don't want to fund the one that has a lot of participation, but we want to fund the one that has a little participation? Are we in there somewhere?
I plead the fifth on that one. No, our ridership is actually up on the Skyway Express. Believe it or not. That's free. No, I think they're two different issues. Let me point something out to you. This commission that Elaine Brown also sits on, that John Crescent-Benny chairs, has done a phenomenal job this year. Because when you think about it, go back to 2007, the shortfall, the operational shortfall on the ferry before Peyton dumped it off into the Port Authority's lap was over $1 million. They got the operational, even in light of the fact that there were a lot of people that thought the ferry had been shut down, there were a lot of negatives that I'm sure had a negative impact on ferry revenue. Even with all of that, they have been able to reduce that deficit substantially, and I think that the trend would be strong. They're faced next year, here's the other big problem, and that's part of the projected $400 and some thousand. The ferry's going to have to be shut down in December. The boat's got to be pulled. So you're going to lose $70,000 or $80,000 worth of revenue in a month that the expenses stay there. We've got to keep paying the people. We've got to pay all the overhead, the management fee, and all the rest of it. The only thing that we will save when they shut the ferry down is fuel costs. But everything else goes along with no revenue. So I think with the efficiency that they have driven, I think with any kind of continuity, that trend is going to continue. And I think if we can get it in the hands of the JTA where the funding will not be an issue every year, where it keeps coming up over and over again, then I think it'll be very viable. Look, I said to and Elaine tried to grab me. I think she thought I was going to swing on the guy. But I met with the Department of Transportation. Yes, she's shaking her head. Yeah, he was. I'm too old. I met with Elaine and I and several other people went over and met with the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. And he was just dead set against funding the operation of the ferry. I said to him, well, you know, if you just give us the amount of money you spend on operating the Ortega River Bridge, we'd be happy. They get $400 and some thousand to operate that little bridge right there over the Ortega River. But he doesn't want to have anything to do with the operation of the ferry for some reason. I don't know, he's scared of water or something, but he's just death on that. So, yes, sir, Mr. Tom.
We hear a lot of chatter about the gas tax in relation to the ferry. Is that part of the JTA scenario?
What do you mean part of the scenario?
Well, how does what we hear about the gas tax affect the ferry? And
well, it could ultimately be a funding source for the ferry, and that's certainly the gas tax expires in 2016. I don't know how you feel about the gas tax, but
paying it now.
Huh?
Paying it now.
Well, I think anybody in the room that thinks that if we eliminated the 6 cents local option gas tax, that their gas prices would go down 6 cents, probably also checks under their pillow every morning and see if there's a quarter there. Retailers aren't going to let that happen. And the other thing about the fairness of a tax like that is, again, I go back to the people that are benefiting from the economic engine that Duval County represents, and the fact that those people don't pay anything to Jacksonville that live in St. Johns County and commute into Duval County to work, and that's at least a small way to capture some of that money from them. So, I mean, there's some justification for it. Where is it going to go? I don't know. But I'm sure it's going to be debated over the next months. And as you said, that certainly, if you tied an extension of it to funding the ferry, I mean, that might make sense. But my impression thus far with having informal discussions with the JTA, I don't think that doesn't necessarily bind them to. I think they feel like it's part of transportation, and they probably should fund the operational deficit. So, yes, sir.
The City of Jacksonville Downtown Commission, who pays for that?
DIA, Downtown Investment Authority?
Yeah, where does that money come from?
Well, it's out of the general fund budget. It's the operation of it. They just hired a director.
Does my property tax pay for downtown?
Sure it does. Your property tax pays for everything the City of Jacksonville spends. Absolutely. Whether you can justify the DIA or not, I'll tell you this much. I can understand the reason for a vibrant downtown. As a beach resident, I can understand that it is important to the community as a whole. Have we spent money prudently on it in the past? I don't. We've spent over $1 billion, it seems like, in projects for umpteen years on downtown development. What I think our biggest mistake has been is that we have not focused. To me, the most important thing would be to take a section of downtown, a small increment in downtown on the North Bank, and say, here's what we're going to do to fix that, fix it, and then expand to there. If you drove somebody through LaVilla right now from out of town and you said, this is a successful project, they'd look at you like you had a horn in the middle of your head. Now, those of us that live here that remember what LaVilla was like before would say, yeah, you know, it's not there yet, but it's a lot better than it once was. So I think that there's some things coming along. Downtown Investment Authority, if it stays independent, and that's what we're very concerned about, if it stays independent and you've got a board of committed citizens that are volunteering their time to make downtown better and being prudent in their discretion, then I think it has a value. And I think ultimately, when you start getting a vibrant downtown, you'll attract people. You want to hear something really bizarre? Let me tell you my idea. This is sort of a downtown thing. I call this guy because we've been looking at Metro Park. Metropolitan Park is underutilized. It's really, Starry Nights is coming back for any of you that have experienced that, and it's wonderful. You go down there and you listen to the symphony. Usually they had a headliner playing with or performing with the symphony. It was a great deal. They're coming back. It's been away for years. And so we need to utilize that park more. I investigated the idea of an antique carousel down there. I talked to the guru of carousels, and there are a lot of parks around the country that have carousels and do very well. I'm sure the one, you've seen the one down in St. Augustine is constantly going like this. Well, I'm not talking about that kind of carousel. I am talking about a Mac Daddy 4-row 1913 carousel that knock your socks off that every kid driving on the overpass looking down at it would say, Daddy, Daddy, I want to go there. But those are the kind of things we've got to get to draw downtown. And I think if we can do that, downtown becomes viable and important. And I think in employment, it's all interrelated. We need residential downtown. We need more employers downtown. We need retail. We need attraction. And I think in the long run, it'll be important to do that to the community as a whole. Yes, Carl.
I have a question up here now.
Huh?
I had a comment up here.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think that, in my opinion, it seems like Jacksonville downtown has had years and years of very poor development decisions, and it's suffering because of that as much as anything else. And I think that the aggravation of us seeing money dumped into downtown for one perceivably failed thing after another would be remedied a bit if we had better transportation for us to be able to go and enjoy things there. Frankly, we either have to drive or we have to ride a bus, which, sorry, but, you know, I don't want to ride a bus after about, 8 or 9 o'clock.
I understand.
I just don't think that's a good way to go. But if we were connected with better transportation, that was reliable, clean, all that, I think it would go a long way to bringing the whole larger community together.
Point well taken. Of course, you have to admit, too, though, that if you had very strong attractions downtown, people will tend to find a way to get there if it's something they really, really want to do or they really, really want to see. But I think your point on some of the past decisions and discretion is absolutely right. There's some good things going on right now. I think the Laura Street Trio will be a development. I think that the Hyatt is getting ready to spend $30 million renovating their hotel. They met with me and they were saying, what are y'all going to do with the old City Hall and the county courthouse? I said, why are you interested? Well, it'd be a great place for a convention center. I said, you all want to pay for it? Well, we might want to talk some. Who knows what that brings? Berkman Plaza, that unfinished Berkman Plaza that looks really, really bad. It says downtown development is a joke. I think that there's a chance that the construction on that will be completed. There's been some ongoing conversations and some decisions being made in Atlanta, and I think that we will see that take care of itself. I don't know whether you grasp what the DuPont Trust has done with respect to the old library, but that is going to be a significant project. They're spending millions of dollars, they bought it, and they're spending millions of dollars in renovating it. And the idea is to draw nonprofits and house them in that center. And Ms. McGill told me that they're already overbooked. They have twice as many people want to be in there. I've been talking to the Florida Theater, and we've been working on an idea to take 2 of the floors. The Florida Theater office building is completely empty except for the Florida Theater organization itself. We've been talking about taking 2 floors in the Florida Theater and start that off as an incubator for nonprofits and arts and education organizations, and give them a break on lease rates. Building's empty anyway. What kind of break are you giving them? And try to see if that works well, then we'll replicate it all the way down the rest of the floors. It's a 7-story building. And so there are a lot of things that you can do to spark downtown that aren't necessarily required throwing big buckets of money in. And I think that's where the DIA, if they really function the way they should, they're going to go beyond just saying we need $8 million to do this. Hopefully they're going to be encouraged to think outside the box, like everybody likes to say, and do some things that are meaningful in the downtown area that might not take investments. We went nutso on Hemming Plaza. We should have already had Hemming Plaza taken care of. We went without, we met for months coming up with an idea, come out with an RFP, and let's find somebody to operate it. There was a group that got together, a coalition of various organizations. They were going to bid on it. We blew it. We blew it with the specifications on our RFP. They didn't bid. There is a group of ladies called the Late Bloomers. They want to go through and landscape all of downtown. Private money doing it. They got great ideas. See, I think it's a matter of just getting the focus, getting the enthusiasm, getting the direction, and saying, this is what we want to be. And I don't think it's just a matter of throwing money at it. So, Mr. Knight.
Yeah, but you probably remember when we did the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
They had grandiose plans for down there.
Yeah.
And the drawback was the displacement of the residents.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah.
We still have that problem. There is a lot of things that people, and we can do, but there again is displacement of residents and all like that. Everything we've done down there has been great, but it all falls back to this displacement of residents.
Well, we're not going to be successful developing downtown with the only residential properties being Berkman Plaza type structures. We need things that would attract young families, that would have pocket parks, would be low rise and attract people to downtown. There are a lot of people that like urban living, and there's a resurrection going on in a lot of metropolitan areas where people are moving back into the city. We talk about Detroit, and everybody makes fun of Detroit, but let me tell you something, folks. If you've never been to Detroit, downtown Detroit, it's magnificent. It is fantastic. The problem with Detroit is when you get outside of downtown, there's about a 3-mile or 4-mile or 5-mile ring around Detroit that you don't want to break down in that ring going on, even on the interstate. They'll strip your car in daylight. But downtown Detroit is very, very nice. Harriet.
I want to say one thing about the beaches. Let's hope that gas tax money does not go away, because that gas tax money for Neptune Beach is $260,000. And when that goes away, along with tipping fees, Jarbo, our city manager, has already told me, Harriet, we will have to raise taxes. So let's just hope that money does not go away.
Yes, ma'am.
It's needed.
Kara?
I have a positive comment. I agree with what the mayor said, so I also agree with that.
Okay.
But you were talking about the importance of paving and everything, and I don't know if the residents here all know that you helped with the paving of Florida Boulevard because it is a county road, so I just wanted to publicly thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. There is some advantage being council president. but it's fleeting. As Elaine knows, it comes and then it quickly goes, right, Elaine? One minute you're a hero, next minute you're just like everyone else. So I hand over. Oh, yes, sir.
I commend you for opening up this community-wide debate on the charter. And I'm very interested in that committee that you tasked Lori Boyer to chair. So I have 2 quick questions. First of all, what was the selection process for the 25 members?
No, we have 31 members. The selection process was that we solicited from city council members, from citizens. We got a lot of people that responded that wanted to be involved in it. We ended up with over 100 names. I gave her a list of people that I would like to have seen on it, or what I like to see. Matter of fact, Lane was on my list, and she acquiesced. But finally, the ultimate decision was made by Lori. I had to let Lori, as the chair, make the final decision as to who was going to be on the task force. And I think she did a very good job because it's a pretty diverse group. I think Elaine and Georgette will tell you that it's a good cross-section of the community. What she tried to do was get people from segments in the society or in the community. And we have people from nonprofits. Georgette is a professor, as I said, at UNF in that field, so she's a great asset. We have people that have prior elected experience. We have somebody from the nonprofits, or several from the nonprofits, some of the community activists. So I think it's a good cross-section. I think they'll do good things. Someone else had a hand up. Yes, sir.
The Jumbotron a done deal? And
no, there's no such thing as that. Till the check's signed, there's no such thing as a done deal. Mr. Clark tried to run that thing through the CIP, and it didn't go very far, because I think most people, like I, don't think that's necessarily the way to fund it. I'm not going to put Karen on the spot. I think it's still being kicked around. If you fund it using bed tax as a revenue source, that's money that's fairly well restricted. One of the restrictions that is, or one of the things that is allowed under that restrictive covenant is that you can use it for stadium expansion and improvement. So you could take bed tax money and bond it out and probably fund that. I like what Charlotte did, and I was reading this somewhere. I think it's kind of an intriguing idea. Charlotte has asked the legislature to establish a food and beverage tax, and they use that to fund they want to use that to fund $143 million worth of stadium improvements. One of the other caveats, though, is that they tie that expansion to the Panthers agreeing to stay for 20 years or something, I think, which I thought showed a little bit of foresight. Although I don't think Shad Khan has any plans to leave, but I mean, I'm just saying that they thought the thing through. There is a provision in statute now to be able to use food and beverage tax. Matter of fact, Dade County has done it to address some of their homeless situation as a funding source. That's a possibility for that and other things. So I don't think you're going to see this council particularly excited, or probably the mayor either, about jumping out there and using general fund tax dollars to support that. But if it's something that's plausible, sure. Especially if they put my name on it. Yes, ma'am. Not a sewage treatment plant, but on the Jumbotron, right?
Waste not, want not.
Waste not, want not.
In 1987, with the billboard sort of memorandum that we did, or referendum that we did, is the city council, do you think they will try to nullify that, or do you think it's even legal to try to nullify that?
I don't know. You know what? I can honestly say, I hate to admit this, but I have paid virtually no attention to that thing. I've had so much going on that I haven't even read the legislation. I'll do that. It's getting ready to start the committee, and that's when you really hear some things. There are a few colleagues I have that I value their opinion. Mrs. Homework, which Georgette will tell you all about, Lori Boyer. Well, Georgette. Lori Boyer was a taskmaster, but I think honestly, and I'll say, I think I've even said it to her, I think she's the smartest person on the committee, on the council, and I yield to her study and judgment on occasions. I don't know where anybody is on this thing. It was just thrown out there. I'm not a big fan of proliferating billboards. I'm philosophically opposed to that. If that's what this thing is doing, regardless of whether it was a charter amendment or not, I wouldn't be too excited about it. But I don't know. I just haven't studied it yet. I'm also concerned if the citizens voted to amend the charter accordingly, does this act to overturn what they decided back then? And if it does, I've got a bit of a problem with that too. What do you care? You live in St. Johns County. You're one of
Because this morning, people came to my office to ask me that. It was
well, you tell them it's not a we all go home and do something more exciting than this, probably. Anything? Oh, yes, sir.
Does the county have any input to the JPA and FDOT about JTV? They're getting ready to repeat the same mistake that they made when they built it in the first place. They're going to put a stoplight at the west end of JTV. That makes no sense at all. And they're apparently just going to proceed with that.
I didn't know that. No, I think I don't know.
Does the county have any input?
We don't have any real force of vote or whatever. We control their budget, and not by line item, but overall budget, parts of their budget. But we don't direct them, which is again one of the issues that's going to be looked at by this task force. How independent should they be, or should they exist, or should they be modified, or whatever? I'll give you one quick, before we leave, let me give you a quick example of a problem that I see, and this is in the area of procurement. And this is with one of the authorities. I won't identify them yet, because I haven't given them a chance for defense, but I'm going to. They go out and they take bids, and they get 5 bids on this particular commodity, this piece of machinery. And before they open the 5 bids, they tell 3 of the bidders, you haven't satisfied the safety requirement that you have to have filed with us in order to come on our site. So they reject, they won't even accept those 3 bids. Now I find this out from a fellow I've known that was one of the bidders that was rejected. He tells me about this. He also told me, and I didn't substantiate it, I'll just take his word, also told me that he would have been the low bidder against the 2 bidders that they did open the bids on. My point is, it seems to me common sense would dictate that you would open all 5 bids, and if the lower bidder wasn't qualified, didn't have their certification in, you said to them, we're going to award this to you subject to giving you 30 days to get certified. Because it seems to me the process shouldn't drive the action. It's the low bid. That's to the benefit of the citizenry and the taxpayer and the city itself. So I think that there are a lot of holes in this whole idea of independent authorities and how independent they are. I have a problem with procurement because we as an elected body have no real control over the award of major contracts, big contracts. We don't have any award over small contracts. In every other instance, City of Atlantic Beach, City of Jacksonville Beach, other counties and cities, the elected body has the ultimate authority to say, yes, we're going to award that bid. And we can't do it unless we do it by ordinance, individual ordinance on each acquisition or each purchase. And that's unwieldy, obviously. So those are some of the things that that Georgette is going to take care of for us. Right, Georgette? And Elaine. Some good hands. Anyone else before we close? Well, I want to thank you all. I can tell you that having grown up in the community and being here for a long time and getting to know so many wonderful people, that I'm honored to serve you all and to represent you in town. I think you couldn't find a better group of citizens and more involved and engaged and interested and active. So that means an awful lot to us. When we see people like Elaine and others that step up, and Tom and just and Linda and a whole host of people that I recognize in the room that give of their time and energy for common goals and purposes. I mean, we saved the ferry, at least we've saved it till now, because of the efforts of a lot of good people, that the only thing they got in return was the self-satisfaction of being involved in a worthwhile effort for the community. And that's very, very rewarding to any one of us that are sitting in an elected seat. And I think anybody here that is elected or has been elected will tell you the same thing. So thank you all very much for all your support and kind words and the rest of it. And thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Bill. We really appreciate you coming tonight. I mean, it's always very informative. So we appreciate Bill being here. Very quickly, I want to recognize we have 2 young ladies over here. I was told that are students, and they're visiting our meeting tonight. And would you young ladies tell us where you're going to school? Pleasure Middle School. And you're here because of your civics class, is that right? So thank you very much for coming. Get more of your friends to come to the Beaches Watch meetings. We need more young people.
I'll stand up because I'm their teacher. And I would challenge all of my students to come to at least one civic meeting every 9 weeks. So I'm glad that we have the mayors from all of the beaches cities here, because I hope you will see 150 students coming in and out of your meetings, and I hope you'll be as welcoming as you have been tonight. I know that sometimes what we discuss in these meetings is far above the level of what you ladies probably are interested in. But the point is, I think Mr. Gulliford said it best, that it's people getting involved and taking action. And whether you're in 7th grade and you're 11 or whether you're 70 years old, it doesn't matter, because we all need to be involved. So I do hope the city will start seeing these students at their meetings. I did, put Beaches Watch. I've got all of you guys posted, so I hope you keep to your schedule, because I have it posted in the classroom, and they all took pictures of it, and they will be hopefully coming in and out of this season. So,
I know Val mentioned the ferry, but was there, did you want to say anything in addition to what Val made us?
Well, I'm sure that he said that at 2 o'clock tomorrow, the Finance Committee is going to meet again. And this is kind of a wrap-up. There's amendments that have come in and a wrap-up. The ferry was not funded. The ferry has no funding now. And we have a deficit, which we're really proud of it only being $450,000. But it is not funded, and wasn't in the mayor's budget. It's not in the city council budget. So there's going to be a battle, maybe a battle tomorrow, maybe just a little, verbal battle. But anybody that can come out and show your support for the ferry, this is the time to do it. I think we need just a little bit longer to really find that continued revenue stream to, continue the ferry. But we've brought the cost of running it down. We've certainly, put the ambassadors together. We've put the Ferry Fest together. We have another one coming up. We have a lot of people that are engaged in it. And again, it's not about a ferry going back and forth. This is about A1A in Duval County staying open. And if they cut the legs off that, when tourism comes in to the state of Florida, they'll probably go in more like St. Augustine than come here to go to a dead end and then have to make their way back out to a highway. So it's keeping the First Coast, this beautiful, beautiful scenic byway that we're trying to get designated, that Linda Lanier is helping me with here too. And, it's a lot of work, but the Greenway is now part, of the ferry, and that whole experience is adding to it. So tomorrow, and thank you for letting me say it one more time, 2 o'clock, just come, show you, we'll have buttons for everybody. Come show your support. It will mean an awful lot, and it could make a difference. Thank you.
On the same note, real quick, October 12th is the rock solid, drop dead. We're doing the Ferry Fest on that date, which we're waiting to make sure that date's rock solid is October 12th. So we want to start getting that word out there on top of that. It's one of the things that slipped by. It moved once is what we're saying now.
Sandy, one quick thing. When you're down, those of you that go down there tomorrow, there's another issue that's come up that I sent a letter to the president of, or excuse me, the chairman of the finance committee. The Mayport CRA that I've been pushing was dropped from the funding of the Office of Economic Development, and that's a reinvestment authority, community reinvestment authority, that we think that in order to get that set up covering Mayport Village, that will give great impetus to the redevelopment of Mayport, and it also will secondarily help the ferry ridership. So tomorrow, if you're down there, that's going to come up, that funding be restored. So it's $200,000. We need it. I'm going to keep pushing it. So just an FYI.
All right, thank you all, and have a wonderful evening. Hope you can make it to the Finance Committee meeting tomorrow, and see you October 2nd.